Do you play board games? Well, I certainly do. My family and I love playing board games together. Ever since I was a kid, it was a very beloved family activity. First, those were memory games, educational games, and my favorite type of games, walking games. Well, at least as I call them. However, now as most of three of us kids grew up, we tend to choose detective games, and at this point, we had played through most of the original stories the market had to offer, so after a while, my dad got us an adventure game to try. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and today I want to tell you about a board game in the realm of fog, or in original Im Nebereich, an adventure game by Cosmos. I want this video to be somewhat overview, and I don't want to spoil the whole game for you, so I'll briefly touch on the main plot, vaguely mention a couple of places and characters, but I'll mostly be focusing on our experience playing the game. First, let's go over components of the game. The game comes with different types of cards, which include parts of the map, character cards, object cards, mission cards, location cards, and a few other cards. The pack also includes a bunch of different chips and 2 books. 3, technically, if we count the manual. The game tries to emulate the point-and-click adventure on PC, but IRL, which means that to unlock a new object or location or talk to a character, you need to combine the card numbers to get a new paragraph to read. You might be thinking, what paragraph? Read where? Well, that's what the book is for, at least one of them. When you take action in the game, you use the combined numbers of cards to read the paragraph in an adventure book. For example, when I combine card 10, a sack of flour, with card 11, a barrel of water, I read paragraph number 1011 or 1011, which reads, first you add more water, otherwise it's going to be a mess. Then you add flour and mix until the dough forms. Take cards 10 and 11 out of the game and take a new card, card 14, the dough. To be clear, it is a loose translation from Russian because we are Russian, duh, which was translated from original in German, so yeah, I have no idea how authentic this phrase is, but you get the point. And there is actually a really cool thing I wanted to mention regarding the adventure book. I read on the game's store page that you don't actually have to read adventure book paragraphs yourself, but you can have them read to you through an app. But in the physical version of the game that I have, there was no mention of it, so I don't know in what languages it's available and how it works, because, I wasn't able to see it for myself. But I still think it's pretty cool. To sum up, the mechanics of the game are pretty simple. Players take turns, and during their turn, they can exchange cards, move their character, and do something, for example, again, combine 2 objects. There are limitations to those actions, but they're not super significant to the gameplay, in my opinion, so I'm not gonna go into them. And it's character time! There were 5 of us, but only 4 characters to choose from, which is a very prevalent problem for a family of 5. However, it wasn't a huge deal really, because our mom was more than happy to, listen to us play and do something on the background, occasionally joining us to read a paragraph or 2. So, the 4 characters were the turtle Sammy, the goat Zoe, the mole Matty, and raccoon Vicky. I chose a goat because she looked like she had her shit together with that stick of hers, and also because, I am the goat, and not in the way you might be thinking, but rather as a Russian insult for a very, very stubborn person. I honestly think that we chose our characters pretty fitting for us. My dad was a strong turtle. I was, again, the goat. The middle sister was a mole with a gift of craftsmanship, which is, she's in an art academy. And the youngest one was a raccoon, which I think is a really fitting character for a teen girl. Now, finally, 5 minutes in, let's get into the plot. The game starts with your party returning to your home village. It is deserted and surrounded by mysterious purple fog. All the villagers and supplies mysteriously disappeared, and you can see giant footsteps all over the place. You and your friends need to get to the bottom of this and save your friends and neighbors. To succeed, you travel through the new locations and discover ancient secrets of your world. Yeah, so very fun, very mysterious in general. The world building is pretty nice. It is great that we learn about the history of the world in the playthrough, with the characters. And I think the concept of the game, like in the world of it and like different eras of this world, is also quite neat. Throughout the game, at certain plot points, you can improve one of your basic skills, and those are physical power, stealth, or cunning. And I suppose none of my family members ever played team games before, as I saw all of them improving each of their character skills simultaneously. And what I mean by that is instead of focusing on one skill for their character, they put a bit of their points into everything. So when we needed a high level of one particular skill, nobody had it. Well, except of me, because, I put all of my points into cunning, but we still lacked stealth and physical strength. But, I guess I provided a great example, so, Dad started focusing on strength and one of my sisters on stealth. And, it's not actually that big of a deal as I'm making out of it, and ultimately, however you decide to play, it is still possible to beat the game, and, skills don't really do much if you, go into the game. It's just a fun game mechanic. Typically, every time we would open a new location, we would march there together and explore the place, torch in hand, hope in heart, and straight to there. Sometimes actually game transports all of you in the same location, which is like a plot point, and you have to leave everything behind and just transport to the new location. But at times, as we would read the description of a certain place on the location, some building or a ravine, something like of that sort, the game would ask, "Are you this character? If so, read that paragraph." So naturally, the person whose character was mentioned would use their next turn to inspect this place again. It usually worked out pretty well. We would, get a new mission or a thing to carry around. But one time, when my middle sister went to investigate a crack or like a ravine, like a hole, her character literally fell, and it was absolutely hilarious. And it was specifically like for her character, so all the others were just laughing our asses off. And yeah, she had to skip a couple of turns until, we figured out the way to pull the poor mole out of the hole. As for the puzzles, most of them are pretty entertaining and not that difficult at all. There was like a couple we couldn't solve, but I'll chalk it up to the fact that, we played pretty late in the evening, so sometimes our brain weren't like too fresh, My favorite was the world puzzle, and, it was somewhat of a cipher, and I was the only one who believed it was solvable. Everybody else was like, no, it's just like, some gibberish, just for the lore, just for their sounds, like, no. And, oh man, I was so happy when I did it, and I had to explain it to everybody, and they looked at me like I was crazy. But, it was actually very simple, because like there is another card which kind of gives you the key to it, so yeah. Also, there was a sound in the text, like in the adventure books, the characters would make to emulate the sudden disappearance of a particular chicken that's like, a whole other can of worms. The sound was poof, or as I prefer to read it, poof! And it fucking destroyed me every time it would come up. I'd start to laugh hysterically, and somebody else would have to finish reading the paragraph instead of me. I don't know why this particular sound was that funny, but, I'd call it the funniest part of the game. Now, as I'm thinking about it, probably it's because of the way I read it. I don't know. Also, I really have to give credit to the authors of the game and like the translators, because some of the character interactions in the text were very, very, very funny. and very on point for the characters as well. In addition, I tried to do some voice acting for the parts I read from the adventure book, and in full honesty, it was really amusing to me. I'm such a big fucking clown. But none of the other plays reciprocated it. And that's kind of sad because I think that would have been even more fun. Like, you get to do voices. Isn't that fun? Well, maybe I'm the only one in my family. Also, I'd like to mention that the gameplay took us way longer than the suggested game time, but, it was all fun and games after all, you know. However, by the end we had a lot of stuff in our pockets, like flowers, amulets, scrolls, which we couldn't really figure out how to use and like where to use. So I think it's fair to say that we were kind of confused and exhausted, and at some point we just started flipping through the adventure book so we could see if anything at all would match with the card number that we had. It was especially prevalent with character missions. I don't really know why, but it took us some help to figure it out. And speaking about personal missions, every character has a personal mission, so there are 4 characters and therefore there are 4 missions. And those are the only cards you can't exchange with other players. And I honestly didn't like my personal mission for my character, or rather the implications and the end of it. Spoilers for the mission of the goat. Greatest of all time. In the beginning of the game, we meet a wolf cub, which is assigned to my character, the goat, to care for and, find their family, because, the child is just roaming around the place and, what the hell is going on? Where are the parents? The sad thing is about, this mission is that in a couple of turns of the game, we meet the wolves, which live in the nearby caves. And they won't take that child because, the child is from the different pack, so they can't, house that kid. I don't know. So, because of it, I am forced to go around all the fucking shit going on, weird purple fog, adults disappearing, magic, with that little child attached to my hip. And no hate to the child in question. I just think it is pretty stupid to subject a kid to all of this stress instead of just leaving them with the cave wolves, even though they're from the different pack. Come on, they are wolves. I am a fucking goat and I have business to attend to. And I just think it's extremely ridiculous. When you have a baby and you have to leave it with someone and you leave it with random pack of dogs because your human neighbors, they moved here from I don't know, from south, and it's well, they're kind of from the different pack, they weren't born here. They are humans, those are dogs. We all love dogs, but I don't know, it's kind of weird. So also, spoiler alert for the ending, specific ending for the goat's mission, the mission of that character, personal mission with the child and all. I think you can guess that in the end we are unable to find poor child's family, and I'm her family, I'm her big sister now. I have 2 sisters already. Thank you very much. I don't need more. But it's bitch, what do you mean? I dragged this child through all of this shit going on, magic explosions, monsters standing in our way, and I didn't even find her family. And in the end, I didn't even get a chance to get rid of that child, give it to the wolves. Yeah, they're from a different pack, but they're wolves. No! And man, I just don't think it's fair. At least give me a chance to throw the child off a cliff. That's a joke. That poor child. But And also, like, for the beginning of the game, give me a chance to leave a child with wolves from the, like, very beginning. I can still go around and look for their family, and then, like, bring the child to them, or bring, like, the family to the child. I don't know. Like, find a different solution when child doesn't, like, get endangered. And yeah, by the way, that's like the reason the child is present in my drawing, which, is a moment from the very end of the game. And I guess we carry them around like a purse now. I don't know. Finally, let's talk about the art style, which, in my opinion, is the absolute best part of the game after, like, the poof. The landscape is absolutely magnificent. It's like the first thing I, mentioned, the first thing that I registered when we opened up the game and started playing. It really immerses you into the magic of this world. The details are super cute, all the buildings and the fog. The map is genuinely super cool and I absolutely love it. I don't think I even have a favorite location because, all of them are super good. But on the second thought, maybe the swamp or like the cave. I don't know. It's hard to decide. As for the cards and characters, they are also pretty nice. I think my favorite ones are the ones with plants because I think the plants are done very good. Very cool. The ending of the game was very sweet and, fitting for the game with 12 plus rating, so approved by me. And that concludes my rambling about the game, so if you want to try this game for yourself, you can find a link to Cosmos official store in the description. Plus, I think, like, the game is sold on, like, Thames and Cosmos. I don't know, I just leave a couple of links in the description. As for the drawing, finally, like, for the art nerds, yeah, my people, I chose to depict one of the final moments of the game. The party gets into the magic tower of Amira to try and stop the main villain of the game, which is, spoiler, not Amira. My original idea for the drawing was quite different, to be honest. It was supposed to be a cave, but, I was again feeling oriental. Forgive me. I am really a fan of, like, the feeling, the impression, the vibe the southern and eastern color palettes, like ornaments, clothes, and architecture gives off. I really like the interior of the tower, especially like the stained glass windows, which, to be completely honest, came to bite me on the ass later, as I had no goddamn clue how to draw them. Also, the color combo is very fun, and there are a lot of cute details to draw, like, like all those cracks on the pillars, like flowers in the background, again, stained goddamn glass. You also may notice that Amira on my illustration, which is a gigantic human in green, differs from the one on the game card. That's because I, for some reason, God knows why, convinced myself that it was a statue, despite the game clearly stating that it was an image/painting, like something of that sort. So, when I discovered it, I decided to keep only the bottom half as a statue for the sake of the composition. And I mean, it's not completely unprecedented type of art in real life. And yeah, that's my first time, I think, when the main focus of my drawing was environment, especially like the decorative aspect of it, some like ornaments, maybe like colors, and not the characters, though they're kind of like in like the center of the composition. And I guess it's like kind of a sign, like, all this decorative aspect that like my graduation project starts to affect my real life. Oh no! Anyway, the perspective is crazy, at least for me, and honestly, I didn't bother to find the reference, but I think it worked out anyways. I mean, I don't think I went to uni for nothing, The frame is supposed to look like the mysterious purple fog. I don't know if it conveys that, but there is that. And in each corner of the frame you can see one of the 4 main characters. Yeah, that's pretty neat. And by happy coincidence, I put my signature close to the character I was playing as. the GOAT, as I am. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.